On June 3, 2025, a minivan limped into my shop trailing steam, wipers frozen mid-stroke, headlights dim, even though it was the middle of the afternoon. The mother behind the wheel was not panicking. She was apologizing. She said the power steering had gone stiff about a mile back. Then the temperature gauge shot into the red. Then the battery light lit up all at once, like her car had suffered a stroke. She kept saying, "It was fine yesterday." And she was right. It was fine yesterday. Because the part that failed her was never checked, never mentioned at her last 3 oil changes, and costs less than a fast food combo meal. Today I am revealing how a single rubber loop, one you have probably never looked at, quietly controls almost every system in your engine bay, and why the moment it snaps, your car does not just get a warning light, it gets a total systems failure in the middle of traffic. I have pulled hundreds of these off cars, and I can tell you the pattern is always the same. Nobody thinks about it until it is lying in pieces on the pavement. This is the story of the serpentine belt, the cheapest, most overlooked, most catastrophically important part on your entire vehicle. Here is the part almost nobody registers the first time they hear it. Your engine's crankshaft only does one job directly. It spins. That spinning motion has to somehow reach your alternator so your battery stays charged, your power steering pump so your wheel doesn't turn into a slab of concrete, your air conditioning compressor so cold air keeps coming, and on a huge number of vehicles, your water pump, the thing physically responsible for keeping coolant moving through your engine so it does not cook itself from the inside. All of those systems that feel like they belong to completely different parts of the car, are connected by one continuous ribbed rubber belt threading its way around half a dozen pulleys in a winding S-shaped path. That's actually where the name comes from. It snakes serpent-like around the engine, which is why it's called the serpentine belt. Older cars used to run separate belts for each accessory, one for the alternator, one for power steering, one for the air conditioning. If one snapped, you lost one system. Sometime in the 1980s, manufacturers realized they could save space, weight, and manufacturing cost by consolidating everything onto a single belt driven off one pulley on the crankshaft. It was a brilliant piece of engineering efficiency. It was also, whether anyone admits it out loud, a single point of failure for nearly the entire accessory system of your car. When that one belt is healthy, you never think about it. When it fails, you lose your charging system, your steering assist, your climate control, and on many engines, your cooling system, all at the exact same moment, usually with zero warning beyond a noise most drivers have learned to ignore. That's the uncomfortable truth I want you to sit with for a second. This is not a minor accessory part. This is the part standing between a normal Tuesday commute and a tow truck. And it costs, on average, somewhere between $15 and $80 for the belt itself. Add labor, and a full replacement typically lands between $150 and $300 at a shop. Compare that to what happens if it lets go on the highway. A compromised alternator can drain your battery to nothing within minutes. A seized power steering pump can make a tight turn feel like arm wrestling a vending machine. And if that belt also spins your water pump, your engine can climb into the red zone and start warping a head gasket before you even find a place to safely pull over. I have seen 4-figure repair bills that trace back, in full, to a $7 strip of reinforced rubber nobody looked at for 6 years. So why does nobody check it? Because the serpentine belt is a master of disguise. It is built from EPDM rubber, a synthetic compound engineered specifically to resist heat, ozone exposure, and the oil vapor constantly drifting around a hot engine bay. Manufacturers designed it to be tough, and it is. Most belts today are rated for somewhere between 60,000 and 100,000 miles, which on an average driver works out to roughly 3 to 7 years of quiet, uneventful service. That durability is exactly the problem. A part that fails instantly gets fixed instantly. A part that degrades slowly, silently, over years, becomes invisible. It blends into the background of things my car just does until the day it does not. And when it finally starts to go, it rarely does so with subtlety. Picture the belt itself, a continuous ribbed loop wrapped tightly under tension by a spring-loaded tensioner pulley riding across the crankshaft pulley, the alternator pulley, the air conditioning compressor pulley, the power steering pump pulley, sometimes an idler pulley or two just to route the path correctly, and often the water pump pulley as well. Every one of those pulleys is spinning at a different speed, under a different load, and the belt has to grip every single one of them with just friction. No chain, no gears, just rubber ribs pressed against grooved metal. That friction is what makes it work. And that friction is exactly what heat, oil contamination, and thousands of flex cycles slowly destroy. The first sign is almost always a sound. A high-pitched squeal, usually loudest on a cold start, or the instant you hit the gas and load up the alternator and air conditioning compressor at once. That squeal is the belt slipping against a pulley instead of gripping it cleanly, and it gets dramatically worse in wet weather because moisture cuts traction even further. Drivers hear this sound constantly and explain it away. They assume it's the brakes, or a loose panel, or just an old car noise. It is none of those things. It is friction loss on the one belt responsible for your entire accessory system, and it is the belt telling you, in the clearest language it has, that it is losing its grip. If you actually pull the belt back and look at it, and I mean really look, the visual evidence is impossible to argue with. A healthy belt has crisp, defined ribs and a matte, slightly textured surface. A dying belt develops a hardened, shiny glaze from years of heat cycling, like the rubber has been slowly cooked. You'll see cracks running across the ribs, sometimes shallow surface checking, sometimes deep enough to see daylight through. Edges start to fray. Small chunks of rubber go missing entirely, leaving bald patches where there should be a full rib pressing into the pulley groove. Any one of these signs on its own is worth a replacement. Several of them together mean you are on borrowed time, and you often do not know exactly how much of it you have left. Then there are the symptoms that show up in the systems the belt actually drives, and this is where things get expensive if you misread them. If your steering suddenly feels heavy, almost like the power assist just vanished, especially at low speed or when parking, that is very often a slipping serpentine belt failing to spin the power steering pump fast enough. If your air conditioning starts blowing noticeably weaker or warmer for no obvious reason, same story. The compressor isn't getting full rotational speed because the belt is slipping across it. If your dashboard battery light flickers on, especially paired with dimming headlights at idle or a radio that cuts out when you're stopped at a light, that is your alternator not spinning fast enough or consistently enough to keep the battery topped up. A huge number of drivers replace a perfectly good battery chasing this exact symptom when the real cause is sitting 6 inches away, slipping on a worn belt. And if your temperature gauge starts climbing for no clear reason on any engine where the belt also drives the water pump, that is one of the most serious versions of this problem, because a full break at that point does not just cost you accessories, it can cost you the engine itself. Here's what makes this genuinely dangerous rather than just annoying. All of these symptoms can appear gradually, one at a time, spaced weeks apart, and drivers adapt to each one individually instead of connecting them. The squeal becomes background noise. The stiff steering becomes something to get used to. The air conditioning being a little weak becomes must be low on refrigerant. Nobody connects the dots to one shared cause because nobody is looking at the belt in the first place. Then, on some random Tuesday, usually under load, usually when it's hot outside, usually when you can least afford it, the belt simply lets go. It shreds, it slips off a pulley, or a cracked section finally separates completely. And because every accessory depended on that one loop of rubber, you don't lose one system. You lose all of them in the same 10 seconds, usually with a screech and a smell of hot rubber as the final warning. I want to be clear about something, because this isn't a video designed to scare you into an unnecessary repair. The serpentine belt is not a part you need to replace on a schedule out of fear. It is a part you need to actually look at, physically, with your own eyes, a few times a year, because it is cheap, visible, and gives you real warning signs if you know what you're looking at. Pop the hood when the engine is off, and cool. Follow the belt around its full path. Most cars have a diagram of the routing right on a sticker under the hood, which tells you exactly where the belt should be so you can trace its entire loop. Twist a section between two fingers so you can see the underside grooves, not just the smooth top. Look for glazing, cracking, fraying, and missing chunks. Give the belt a gentle press between the two pulleys with the most exposed span. It should feel taut, with maybe half an inch of give, not loose and floppy. While you're in there, look at the tensioner pulley and the idler pulleys too, because a belt can look perfectly healthy, while the spring-loaded tensioner holding it under proper pressure is the part that's actually failing, letting the belt slip even though the rubber itself is fine. If you hear that squeal, if you see glazing or cracking, or if your car is simply approaching that 60,000 to 100,000 mile window or the 3 to 7 year mark for lower mileage drivers, this is one of the rare repairs where being proactive is almost always the financially smarter move. You are choosing between an $80 part and maybe 2 hours of labor now, or a tow, a rental car, a potentially cooked engine, and an emergency repair bill later at a time and place you absolutely did not choose. This is not a part where waiting for total failure saves you money. It is one of the very few components on a modern car where, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, can genuinely bankrupt you. I'd also gently push back on a myth I hear constantly in the comments section of videos like this one. The idea that a squealing belt just needs belt dressing or a spray-on grip treatment, and that fixes it. Those products can mask a symptom for a few days by temporarily restoring surface tackiness, but they don't reverse glazing, they don't repair cracking, and they can actually make things worse by attracting dirt and grime onto a surface that's already losing its structural integrity. If your belt is squealing, the honest fix is inspection, and in most cases, replacement, not a can of chemical spray from the parts store aisle. The bigger lesson buried inside all of this, the one I really want you to walk away with, is about what regular maintenance actually means on a modern car. Most drivers think of maintenance as oil changes and tire rotations, full stop. But your engine bay is full of quiet dependencies like this one. Single parts holding up multiple systems, wearing down slowly enough that you never notice until the exact moment they don't. The serpentine belt is maybe the purest example of this on the entire vehicle because it is cheap, it is visible, it gives you clear physical warning signs, and yet it remains one of the most commonly ignored components until it causes a 5-alarm breakdown. That gap between how easy this is to catch early and how expensive it is to ignore is exactly why I wanted to make this video. So the next time you pop the hood to check your oil, spend an extra 90 seconds tracing that ribbed loop of rubber winding its way around your engine. Twist it. Look at it. Listen for that squeal the next cold morning you start the car. That one loop is quietly doing the job of half a dozen separate systems, under tension, under heat, thousands of times an hour, for years, without a single complaint, until the one day it finally has nothing left to give. If this changed the way you'll look under your hood, hit like so more drivers catch this before it strands them. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns of the small, cheap parts hiding behind your biggest possible repair bills. And if you've ever had a serpentine belt let go on you or caught one just in time, tell that story in the comments, because the difference between those two outcomes is usually just 90 seconds of actually looking.